107.8 FM.
Hello and welcome to Sundazed, and this week we're going to be talking about history, and I have Graham with me.
Hello.
And Adam.
Hello.
And this is Paris.
Hello.
So we all went to see Horrible Histories. It was playing at the Theatre Royal for a week, and we went to see it on the opening night. And we were lucky enough to be able to interview a king and a queen before we went to the show. And they told us quite a lot about their lives and revealed a few interesting secrets. They told us about their lives, and we were able to ask them some quite interesting questions, perhaps some things that even I didn't know before we started digging into their histories. So we're going to hear a little bit more about that later on. Paris, you're a particular fan of history, aren't you?
Yeah.
What is it about it that you particularly enjoy as a subject?
The effect it has on the future and how they used to torture people.
So Horrible Histories, obviously, you know, bit of a clue in the title there, Horrible Histories. And you are used to seeing Horrible Histories on TV.
Yeah.
What was on at the theatre this time? They had two different shows, didn't they?
They have Victorians and Terrible Tudors. We went to see Terrible Tudors.
It was Terrible Tudors that we went to see. And you say that you like history because you are interested in the fact that we kind of live the way we live now, in large part because of what has happened before and the developments that have been made and the big events that have happened that have made major changes to the country or to the world or to whatever, yeah?
Yeah.
And you find that really interesting, yeah?
Yes.
Now, before we move on to our interview with Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn, we have a brief written review from Adam.
Horrible History show. The show wasn't just good creepy facts, it was funny and you could tell how sly or bold the characters were. The story of the show was great and the Boggle vision was hilarious. One woman screamed louder than I thought was possible. There were a few mistakes like almost falling down the stairs, although the best bit was when the mean old woman was proven wrong and decided to join the group. They didn't look pleased at the idea, but they put up with her.
So, you enjoyed the show? You thought it was good?
Yeah, it was great.
How did it compare to seeing it on TV?
It felt better because it was more real and you felt like you were in the show.
I guess so. I think part of that was perhaps especially in the second part due to the Boggle vision, because of course the characters seemed to, I mean, you felt as though you were surrounded at one point by the Spanish Armada. Seemed to be sailing towards you and you were surrounded by burning ships and all this kind of thing. And the characters seemed to come right out of the screen.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, you enjoyed that?
Yeah.
Well, I know that you were quite enthusiastic about it because you were sitting next to me at the time and you were screaming and yelling over the side of the balcony and I very nearly went deaf in my right ear. But it was good to hear you enjoying yourself. On the day that we went for our interview, we had a couple more of ace Sundazed reporters with us, Holly and Lucy. Holly Hazelgrove and Lucy White. And Adam Jenkinson and Paris Forsyth Fields, between them, managed to dig up quite a lot of dirt about the lives of two of history's most notorious characters, Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn. So come and have a crafty listen with us now.
So this one's for Henry VIII. How did you feel when you lost your first son, Henry Fitzroy?
Well, obviously I was very mortified because obviously it was my only son and I wanted a son, or I needed a son to ascend to the throne. You know, my feelings towards women, yes. So I was very, very upset.
This one's for Anne. If you had given Henry a son, do you think you would have kept your head?
Possibly. We got on very well. We had a lot of chemistry. We had a lovely relationship, really. I think that was my only downfall.
No, it wasn't. She's a philanderer as well, so...
Oh, cheeky. Nothing was proven.
I had my spies, though, yes.
This one's for Henry. Why did you get rid of your first wife?
Well, she was much older than me, and she only gave me a daughter. So it's all about having a son to ascend to the throne rather than a daughter.
Do you think you did a good job of being a king?
You know, being a king is not as easy as it is all cracked up to be. But yeah, I think I did. As I said, I get a lot of bad press, basically, because of my relationship towards women. But on a political side, I just thought the state the country was in. My father left the country in a very financially good state. I obviously spent most of his money, and I was just more concerned about how the country was going to prosper and go forward after my reign, and I thought the only way of doing that was having a son. Obviously, I had a jolly good time whilst I was king. All my pastimes and so on, sports, hunting and so on, partying, let's try and move that to one side and focus on me being a good king and political leader. Thank you.
This one's for Anne. You had to wait 7 years to marry Henry. Did you really love him, or do you just fancy being queen?
Well, I did like him. He was a very nice man, and he did spoil me rotten. He bought me lots of presents. He took me very nice places, but he was fat and ugly. So I wouldn't say I loved him. No, it was. I just wanted lots of nice dresses and jewellery, really. Yes.
This one's for Henry. Were you worried when you fell out with the Pope?
Again, from a political position, yes, with the most of the rest of Europe, I was very much on my own. But from a political standpoint, it was the country I was more concerned about. So falling out, I think it was nothing that I didn't want it to happen, but it was, I think it was a natural progression. It had to happen because he was being very mean towards me by saying that I couldn't get a divorce. So the best thing to do was to sever ties with the Catholic Church. Obviously, it caused huge amounts of problems further down the historical chain, but we live and learn.
This question's for Anne. You chose your motto as once queen, the most happy. Would you change this now?
No, I wouldn't. I'd definitely stand by my motto. I meant what I said, and I definitely stand by it. You live and learn. But I would stand by my motto, yes.
Do you know why you were buried in an old arrow box instead of a proper coffin?
Because he wasn't very nice, was he? He was horrible to me. He should have put me in a lovely coffin, covered in flowers and petals and silk and whatnot, but he put me in a dusty old thing.
Get you out of the way, move on to Jane Seymour.
Exactly.
This one's for Henry. What was your favourite meal?
Favourite meal. Well, I used to have, quite a few meals per day. I averaged about 5. But venison. I loved to go out hunting. I was a very fine archer. And yes, I used to take out I could take out a stag at speed, and then it was nothing more than getting the old servants to hoik that back, carve it all up, away we go. Venison, lovely, with a few potatoes.
This one's for Henry. How often did you have a bath?
That's
not often enough.
That's a very personal question, but I suppose I have to answer it. Yes, not very often. Because I'm the king and I could get away with quite literally murder. Anne herself was obviously always pulling me up on the fact that I wasn't bathing enough. Let's say once every season. How's that? That's sort of a...
He had one a year and he knows it.
All right. I've been caught out. Yes, one a year. Not to say that I didn't swim in a lot of lakes.
This one's for Henry. What was the best thing about being king? The money or the power?
Good question. You can't have one without the other, really. And it was my father, as I said, he was very frugal and he saved up a lot of money and I spent all of it. But I think it has to be the power because king, you can get away with anything. Power.
Listen to Anne. Were you ever truly afraid of Henry?
At the beginning, no. He was a charmer. He was lovely. He sent me love letters. He sent me lovely presents. He was a real charmer, so I wasn't frightened of him. But when I got to know him,
I used to sing to you as well, then.
Yes, he used to sing lovely songs to me. I wasn't scared of him, no, because he was never nothing but lovely to me. And then obviously he cut my head off, so I'm a bit scared of him now.
This one's for Anne. 2 years before you married Henry, his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, described you as a woman who is the scandal of the Christendom. Is this fair?
Not at all. Not at all. Let me tell you something about Catherine of Aragon. She wasn't all peaches and cream either. She was a cheeky little mare. She said that about me, and it was very nasty. I was nothing but innocent. Henry saw me, fancied me, and chased after me. It wasn't my fault.
You had an amazing but dangerous life. If you could have your time again, what would you do differently?
I think I would go into pop music. And follow the roots of Lady Gaga because we had very similar fashion ideas.
When you were a teenager in France, the French court taught you about fashion flirting. What influence did this have on the rest of your life?
Well, I always loved my clothes. I was always very well dressed, and I think that's one of the things that Henry VIII liked about me so much. My fashions were very modern compared to the other ladies in the court. Flirting, I knew exactly what I was doing. I knew how to blow kisses, and I knew how to flutter my eyelids, and I knew all the tricks of the trade, and I definitely knew how to catch someone's eye. And what was the end of the question?
What influence did this have on the rest of your life?
Well, ultimately, the influence was that your flirting got your head cut off.
Yes, it did.
That's quite an influence.
Yes.
History sees you as a man who made many great changes to Britain, but also a bossy bully. Is this fair?
Oh, yes, another good question. Is that fair? No, I don't think it is fair. Because, as you quite rightly said, I made some great changes to the country and a bossy bully. And I keep coming back to this same thing of making the right political decisions to forward England as a great country. And I always had, above myself was my country. Politically, was always above myself. The philandering and the nonsense and the partying was second to that.
I think he was a bossy bully.
This is for Anne. Elizabeth went on to be England's greatest queen. Was this a poke in the eye for Henry?
Oh, yes, I don't think he would have been too happy about it. I think he was quite happy being the big chap on the throne, being king. And I think for Elizabeth to be such a fantastic queen was a huge insult to him. I think he certainly made him rethink his choices, and a bit of girl power. It's what we needed.
If I'd known that, yes, I'd have cut her some slack. She was a good girl. She was quite a minx growing up. But if you look at us generally as a family, it was a bit of a mess. We were all cutting each other's heads off, murdering each other and the like. But we pulled through. No, we're not really a foot market history. We're a huge part of English history over the last 1,000 years.
Sundazed on Future Radio 107.8 FM.
Well, obviously you two are both 12 and 13 respectively, and you're still studying history at school. Adam, is it a subject that you particularly like?
I do like it, it's very fun. Yeah, as Paris said, torture and how people were treated in the old days and how money can determine if you're a good person or a bad person and how much power means to everyone.
And money was a very big thing, wasn't it? As you say, if you had money, then you had power. And if you didn't have money, you had no power.
That's very true to some extent. I suppose that's still true today, but perhaps not quite as much as it was then. But pretty dangerous times to live in. Is it the gory bits of history that really strike you the most, that interest you the most?
Yeah, definitely. One Roman emperor once made human candles by pouring wax over humans who were Christians.
That was Caligula.
Yeah, and he put rope straight down them and set them on fire.
I think it was also Emperor Caligula who was quite mad and made his horse senator and gave him a whole palace to live in and fed him gold flakes.
He ended up sending his horse to... He accused him of being treachery and then he had him beheaded and said that the horse was his only friend.
So when it came to the show itself, was there anything in there that was particularly surprising that neither of you already knew?
Divorced, beheaded and died. Divorced, beheaded, survived. I'm Henry VIII, I've had 6 sorry wives. Some might say I ruined their lives.
Catherine of Aragon was one. She failed to give me a son.
Right, you can't remember any more words, so we'll leave it at that. But that was a very
That's
nice,
good.
very nice first verse. The whole thing about the sword, and the one thing I hadn't realised, I think I knew the bit about the sword instead of using an axe. I'd read that or heard that somewhere, but I didn't know that the swordsman was apparently very kind and hid the sword in the straw.
He was French as well. He was hired specially.
Because of course, I mean, this was quite a little while after the death of Anne Boleyn, but her daughter, who obviously went on to become Elizabeth I, ended up having to sort of agree, even though in many, many ways she was very reluctant, to behead Mary Queen of Scots. Not obviously herself, she got somebody else to do it for her.
She was a cousin, wasn't she? Mary Queen of Scots
Yes.
was Elizabeth's cousin. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was an absolute disaster when it came to executions. That went very, very hard. Well, I mean, ultimately it was a success because the head was separated. You know, if you're going to have your head cut off, you want it off in a single,
So remember
clean
that, everybody.
stroke with somebody who knows what they're doing.
But as a young man, Henry VIII was regarded as an athlete. He was young and strong, and he was considered to be quite a catch among the ladies of the court when he was a young man. I don't know, I think it was archery, and I think he riding, and but he was certainly not the figure that we understand him to be as like the big beard and the big belly and eating lots of dinners.
5 dinners a day. And
Yeah.
Well, whether or not he probably ate 5 dinners a day pretty much from the moment he grew teeth. But of course, you eat 5 dinners a day for a very long time. Eventually, it's going to catch up with you, and you're going to be a bit of a blurter. So this is kind of how he ended up. But I don't think everybody realises that's true, that he was quite a catch in his younger days, certainly when he married Catherine of Aragon. Do you know what his feelings were for Catherine of Aragon? Did he ever like her? Did he ever love her?
He liked her, but then he
got bored of
divorced
her.
her.
Yeah.
You gave me a daughter. We're kind of... Yeah, it's here.
Yeah, you gave me a daughter.
The only woman he actually loved was Jane Seymour, but she died, so he hasn't really had much luck in the marriage department.
He only
Which
kind of
some would
loved her
say
because she
serves
gave him
him
a son.
jolly well right. But I don't know.
Well, if it wasn't for Henry, we would all be
right.
Catholics, and there would be no such thing as a Protestant church if it wasn't for Henry. Because of Henry's desire to get a son, we now have Protestantism. You know, that Church of England would not have existed.
So I suppose ultimately one of the things that history teaches you is that you have to learn to make a divide between the personal life of that key historical figure concerned and what they actually did in terms of decision making and what that did for the country and how that's moved us on and how that brings us to where we are now, the kind of status quo. What about the Victorians? I mean, there are kind of, in historical terms, there are sort of close cousins, really. They were a different society in many ways, and yet there are obviously all sorts of scientific developments then that we're still sort of taking advantage of now, and the discoveries that they made. Is there anything about the Victorians that you particularly like?
I like penny farthings.
You do?
Yeah.
It's a lot of technology, wasn't it? The first big flush of technology was in the Victorian era, wasn't it? All steam and huge ships
Mr. Thomas
and
Crapper. Yeah,
engines.
now you see, how can I resist saying Mr. Thomas Crapper and the flushing toilet?
I agree with what Graham said, because they stopped saying that loads of the mysteries of the world were on God, and they started finding smart answers for it and building technology.
Yeah,
Well,
so
there was a big shift, wasn't there? There was a big shift, and yet at the time it must have put society in an uproar. I mean, we used to it being quite a sort of secular society where if you have a belief of any denomination, you have a belief, but you're not obliged to feed that belief into politics or into your daily life unless that's how you choose to live. But it was still a very different society then, and it must have rocked it to its core to take that extra step and suggest that really, when it comes to the animal kingdom, we're nothing special. We're just a kind of inevitable product of evolution.
Mr. Darwin and his strange newfangled ideas, that was very revolutionary, wasn't it? His ideas were overthrowing millennia of understanding as people were a whole different thing from animals, and he was saying, no, we're just another bunch of animals. Hugely revolutionary.
Tell me what you like about penny farthings.
They are hard to get on, and they are very eccentric bicycles.
Yeah.
And they're quite funny if you see a man, if you imagine a Victorian film,
Yeah.
seeing a man in black and white with a big moustache sort of going down the cobbled street in a penny farthing.
A huge top hat and a penny farthing. With and I don't think they were known to have particularly kind of good tyres, were they?
They were
farthings?
death traps, penny farthings. It was what all the young men of the age would risk their lives doing penny farthing
They were
races.
Victorian BMXs.
Well, yeah, and it was, you're running the half pipe or something. It's on a penny farthing. If you came off a penny farthing, you're flat on your face and no brakes, hardly any steering, and
No brakes. They must have had brakes of some description.
if you wanted to brake, you just kind of jumped off the thing and got out of the way. But it was what the young men did. It was all the athletic young men would be showing off to the ladies by racing penny farthings and
Round parks and
yeah,
round
absolutely.
parks and that kind of
on
thing.
cobblestones. Imagine that. No suspension, no brakes, perched up a big 6 foot tall wheel, going flat on your face on the cobblestones at
But
20
it's
miles an
also
hour.
Must have been
because-
thin, and if you were on cobbles,
That would
Yeah.
be nice.
And of course, because it was a massive 6 foot wheel, what did that mean they were? They were incredibly fast.
Fast.
Yeah.
Very difficult to ride, but very fast.
So you both enjoyed the show, and you'd go again, you think, if they were doing another one? Period of history. If they did another show, what do you think you'd like to see this time?
well, I already know that they're doing a new show.
Are they?
Yeah, I think they're doing World War One and Georgians,
Ah, right. The Gorgeous Georgians. Yeah.
and the Woeful World War One.
Woeful World War One, if that's what it's called. And you think you'd like to go and see those when they...
I'd prefer the World War One.
You prefer World War One?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Georgians, I can't believe that Georgians used to have window tax, so they used to brick up their windows to save tax.
Oh, anything to make a buck, anything to squeeze some money out of the people. Because probably one of the most important things about the Georgians was that it was the age of the Enlightenment, when people were openly seeking answers to questions and scientific endeavour. The Royal Society was in full swing by then. And
they made Buckingham Palace then.
Did they?
Yeah.
What, in the Georgian era? That's when they built Buckingham Palace?
Yeah, it was one of the Georges who designed it.
I thought it was in the Victorian era because it has Queen Victoria as the statue outside.
Oh, they probably put that up after they'd already built the building. Well, that's great. So you go and see another show if you got the chance, and you think you'd like to go and see World War One. Yeah, you both like to go and see World War One. George, yeah.
Ah, that was it. It was George IV. George IV who designed it.
Oh yes,
his dad was mad.
The guy who designed the pavilion.
Yeah.
Did I say that right?
Say yes, the pavilion.
Yay.
Right, the pavilion. We've been there, haven't we?
Because there was a Horrible History song about that, and it was like he was just moaning about how everyone remembered he was fat.
Yeah.
Do you know? Have you got one more song for us that you could do from Horrible Histories to finish off with?
My name is Charles II. I love the people and the people love me so much that they restored the English monarchy. I'm Spanish, French, Italian, a little bit Dane, but 100% party animal is champagne.
Hey, very good, very good.
That's cool.
Right, thank you very much, Adam in Paris. That's terrific.
Sundazed on Future Radio 107.8 FM.
Not only did you get the chance to interview Henry VIII and his poor unfortunate wife Anne Boleyn, but of course you also got to interview Simon Lloyd and Laura Crowhurst, who were of course the people who were taking two of these roles on the stage. And you had some quite interesting questions for them about what it was like to be an actor and what got them interested. Did you find it interesting finding out, sort of getting a behind the scenes look at what you saw on stage and what it involved?
Yeah, definitely. It was fun to see if they thought they would be a historical actor when they were younger, what they wanted to be when they were younger, and it was fun to see all the different questions.
Yeah.
And answers.
I think that was really good. And what about you, Paris? Did you enjoy getting the chance to sort of talk to them about their lives as actors and find out what that was like?
Yeah, I think it was really good. Laura always gave longer answers than Simon. Yeah. Like, we asked her what her favourite subject was at school, and she explained it was drama for a very long time, and then we asked Simon, and he just said, well, same, and then we sort of moved on.
Because she'd sort of said it all. She'd said it all by then. And she did say, didn't she, that you had to work very hard and do a lot of other jobs to maintain a career as an actor, because you couldn't necessarily get enough work consistently to support yourself, and so you would sometimes need to do other things such as waitressing and that kind of thing on top of it. So it's very interesting to get that behind the scenes look, and we have for you now the interviews with Laura Crowhurst and Simon Lloyd.
Has it always been your dream to be an actor?
For me, yes, when I was at school, drama was one of the lessons that I most look forward to every week, because you got to pretend to be other people. You got to step out of your own shoes and step into someone else's. I then left school and went to college to do a BTEC in acting. From that moment on, when I was about 16 or 17, I knew that this was definitely what I wanted to do. But it's not an easy choice. You have to do a lot of jobs alongside being an actor. So you're never really an actor. You're always a waitress / actor, aren't you?
Speak for yourself, love.
Well, but the passion, when you find what you really want to do, you can't do anything else.
Yes, I did amateur dramatics when I was very young, and then I enjoyed drama at school. And thought, apart from being a fighter pilot and a vet, and I wasn't bright enough to do either of those, so I went into acting, yeah.
This goes to both of you. Did you see yourselves as becoming historical actors when you were younger?
No, I think for me personally, I love being funny on stage and I love comedy. For me, history was always very serious, Shakespeare and things like that, so I never saw myself in that type of role. But Horrible Histories is perfect because it's so funny as well as being historical. So I think this is the only way I could be a historical actor with Horrible Histories.
As for both of you, I just wanted to know, how did you get to this role right now? Did you speak to anyone in particular or anything like that?
To get these roles? No, well, it basically comes down to the company that we work for, Birmingham Stage Company. The producer there, guy Neil Foster, he saw me in a show many years ago, but then it was a casting director who knows me as well, who... it's all about, like so many things, it's all about networking and who you know and what you know and so on and so forth. So I've always wanted to work for Birmingham Stage Company, and the fact that they've been doing Horrible Histories for a few years now, it's perfect. You know, it's great fun. You're just basically paid to be silly on stage, and you know you can't really beat that. You can't beat that at all.
What do you prefer, playing good or bad people?
Ooh.
Oh, baddies, I think, yeah.
I don't think any of our characters are truly either good or bad. They're all a bit naughty, aren't they? And then they're all quite good in some scenes.
Yeah. I mean, it's always baddie, you know, in films or anything, you know, the baddies always have the...
more fun.
Always have more fun than that. And, you know, you always find yourself rooting for the baddie or the underdog, I suppose, yeah.
Baddies are always more fun, aren't they?
Baddies are more fun, yes, yeah.
What's the moment where it all kind of falls into place and makes the most sense to you? Is it when you're on the stage and you're in character and you sort of inhabit that character quite fully? Mm-hmm. Is that where the magic happens, or where would you say?
I think, well, for me, it's always been actually the reaction at the end. It's
right.
The audience's reaction coming out, and you know that you've done your job right. I mean, a lot of it is in you're doing your research, reading the play, and so on and so forth. But that's the ultimate for me is getting that reaction at the end.
Can you tell when the performance is going on? Do you get any sense of how the audience are reacting before they've had a chance to burst into applause?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
With these plays, the audience are very much with us on the journey, because there's the three of us who play the Dastardly Dramatics, who are a touring theatre company. We are the three members of the show, and you follow us as we show you all the horrible sides of history. Right. And you're very much on our side, and we are talking to you, asking you questions, interacting with you the whole way. Yeah. You know, we get you singing, we get you dancing, we get you booing, cheering, standing up, sitting down. So you're very much with us.
Is that something of a rarity when it comes to being on stage, to get that much interaction?
Absolutely. Other than pantomime, you don't really get much of a chance to do something that interactive. When you're casting kind of a straight play, there's often the fourth wall, which is between you and the audience, so we don't see you, we don't interact with you. Whereas in pantomime and this kind of theatre, that wall is broken down and we are talking to you. You're there, we're here, let's have fun.
Yeah, an invisible barrier kind of collapses. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
If either of you make a mistake, would you rather help the person out and risk you making a mistake, or would you rather let them crash and burn?
It's very much a teamwork. We've been working together for months and months now, you know, rehearsing, learning lines. So it's very much a team. You go out there on stage as a team, and that's how actors work. You know, we do create a little family, and, you know, we like everyone, we like each other, so we never want to see anyone crash or burn. We want to help out as much as we can. And if a mistake does happen, then normally we know what's meant to be said anyway, so we can come in and say it too.
Okay, well, that's all we have for you this week, folks. So I'd like to thank my guests, Graham, Adam and Paris.
Thanks.
And we'll see you next time.
Sundazed on Future Radio 107.8 FM.